friends, thanks for joining me again and welcome to another Homeschool Sunday. And today I want to talk about our homeschool curriculum. I have been teaching my children here at home for quite some time now. They are 9 and 11 and I started teaching my oldest child here when she was in preschool. So I did preschool, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, and now she's in sixth grade. So 8 years, well, going on 8 years of homeschool. And of course it was easier in the beginning. So before we actually started with the curriculum, I did a lot of research to find out which ones were good, which ones were easy to use. I read like countless reviews. I considered the cost, how easy they were to, come by. Just so many different things. There, of course, are religious ones, there are secular ones, and there's just so many homeschool curriculums out there. It made my head spin. It was just so much information trying to pick one. And so when we finally did settle on the one we did a preschool curriculum, which preschool curriculums are really simple and straightforward. It was basic worksheets that taught stuff like colors, numbers, just really basic stuff. And while I was doing preschool, I still worked full time. It was really easy to do preschool, just a couple of days a week, 1 hour, a day. So, and even then, you just naturally teach your kids when you're playing with them anyway, when they have blocks or they have bricks or colors, you can enforce these types of things really easily. So anyway, when we first started with our curriculums though, the ones that we are using now, they actually started in kindergarten. And that was when I was doing the research, was before I put them in this one. I wanted a curriculum that would take them from, kindergarten until way later on in life. Probably not necessarily high school, but at least through elementary and maybe even a little beyond. And so the curriculum that we actually ended up going with is a curriculum called Learn at Home. It has a couple of different editions, and here I actually have one of each. So you see on this one right here, how it just has the house with the 2 windows. This is the older edition, and it's a lot cheaper actually. This is the newer edition. The newer edition has the house, but then in front of it, there's like a parent with the child. So this is the revised edition, and this will have more stuff like, this one will say, go to the library and do this and that with the card catalog. And that's just kind of outdated because we don't use card catalogs and things like that anymore. Just as an example, because there's a whole lot more little things in there like that, but this is just one. This one will say, you go on the computer and this and that. So it's a lot more modern and it's a lot more updated for what kinds of stuff we have going on. So every time I order one, I know that the older version is always going to be cheaper. The newer version is going to be more expensive, but it's not that much more, and honestly I think it's worth the extra for the newer version because, again, it's more modern and has been revamped. But there's a lot of things I actually really like about this curriculum. So, in the beginning, it'll say a whole bunch of stuff about what, your child should be knowing by the end of the year, a lot of the different topics that you're going to be learning on. See what else. Oh, like an overview of different stuff that they should know as far as their handwriting, their grammar, their writing, different stuff like that. And then as far as week to week, it'll say the week number, and then it has a grid outline of what the curriculum actually looks like when you're working with it. So across it says language, spelling, reading, math, science, social studies, and then on the other side it says Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And so the way that the curriculum is actually laid out is to where Monday you would do 1 language, 1 spelling, 1 reading, and so on, and then Tuesday you would do the same thing, and it would basically be just like a public school in the way that you would school your child at public school, but it would be at home. So it really does set up your school day very similarly to the way that you would homeschool, or how they would have learned to do school at a traditional school. Honestly, this right here is the reason why I chose this curriculum, as opposed to the other curriculums where it would just be a curriculum book with all math, but it really didn't have any guides on where you should be at that book. I know you're shooting to be a quarter of the way through by, the first quarter, halfway through maybe, just after Christmas, I wanted something that made it a whole lot easier so that we knew where we were at day to day, week to week, month to month, from one year to the next, and very cut and dry. I can tell everyone my kid is in 6th grade because she is, and she's doing all 6th grade work right now. Whereas a lot of the other homeschool curriculums, it kind of gets a little muddy. You never really know where they're at on this grade level or that. Some students are learning, fractions in 3rd grade, and then other curriculums, they're not learning them until 6th grade. So it's really hard for them to line up as far as the way the traditional schools go to. And that was another thing I considered, is in the event that I did need to go back to work, if I did have something happen, there just something came up where I could not continue to homeschool, I wanted their curriculums to line up with the public school systems well enough that they could transition from the homeschool to the public school without it being like they're so far behind, or they're really not in touch with a lot of the different subjects they have out there and whatnot. And I really feel like this curriculum does that. After having looked through all of the different, stuff that we've been doing, etc., I can honestly say I really do think it lines up very well when you compare where they're supposed to be at the end of the year with how the other kids are supposed to be. I would say that they're at least equal, if not the homeschool curriculum is a little bit above and beyond that, especially in the earlier grades. I felt like kindergarten was a really rough grade because they learned a lot. And then when I compared that to the public schools, I figured out that it was a little bit ahead. So anyway, in addition to the grid style system where you actually figure out what we do day to day, which is really easy to work with, it just says give your child the pre-spelling test. I tell them these words, they write them down, we double check them, see which ones they have wrong, done. Check mark. So we can tell exactly what we have finished and what we haven't, and I actually write that right in the book. In the beginning, I used to make copies of the different stuff in the books. When they would do a worksheet like this, I would take a copy of it and I would try and use the book from one year to the next, and I figured out that doing that actually was more expensive than just buying a whole new book. So that's what we do instead. And so it not only comes with that grid that tells us exactly what we should be doing, but it also comes with lots of worksheets. They're full color worksheets. They have different worksheets depending on what, subject it's going to be. So here is the week 2, it's whole grid. And then, some additional stuff that kind of lines up with the other one, because this isn't always enough space to be able to tell you everything you need to do. It'll give you a quick overview and then say, okay, but also see. And then you can read up some more stuff on what you're supposed to do. And then again, more worksheets throughout here, which is really helpful. My kids really like worksheets, and yeah, they do pretty well at them. There's another thing I really like about this homeschool book, is that not only was it really easy as a parent to go through the book and learn how to be a teacher to my kids and know where I'm at with them, now that they're in older grades, it's easier for them to follow this book even on their own. I can just say, okay, start your schoolwork. They can go to that little grid, look up the blurb, and they can get started on that work all by themselves. So I'm going to ask them a few questions and see what they think of it. Because again, they've been exclusively homeschooled. They've never been to a single day of public school in their entire lives. And they've been using this curriculum for a really long time. Again, kindergarten all the way through 6th for this one, and then kindergarten through 4th for that one. So what do you think of this curriculum? Do you like how it's easy to use? Do you feel like it's... Go ahead.
I think so.
Do you like working on it on your own?
Yeah.
Do you? Do you feel like it's pretty easy and that it explains exactly what you're supposed to do pretty well?
Yeah. Most of the time.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's pretty easy to figure out where you are from one week to the next so that we don't end up being behind on a, particular subject or anything like that?
Yes.
You do? Do you like the worksheets it gives you?
Yes.
Do you feel like this is challenging, or do you feel like it's easy?
Some of it's challenging, some of it is more easy.
Yeah, it's probably just has to do with different subjects and
Yeah.
what you can be working on and what you may be good at and what you're maybe not as good at and whatnot. What about the reading suggestions? Because it also does give a lot of suggestions in the reading for different books that they should read. And there are a lot of really famous books that when you go through it, you're like, oh, I remember reading that in kindergarten, or I remember reading that in 3rd grade or whatever. So a lot of the suggestions for the books work out pretty well. What do you think on that?
Mhm. Yeah.
You like the
so.
reading suggestions it gives you?
Yeah.
Do you feel like it makes it pretty easy for us to homeschool, where we can look ahead for the week, figure out what books we're going to need? If it's like, okay, well, this is what we're supposed to be learning in science, we'll get some books at the library on that.
Yeah.
we'll get this, nonfiction book for the reading section or whatever. Something in social studies, it'll say we're supposed to be studying whatever, and we can find some additional materials there.
Yep.
It works pretty well when we add DVDs from the library or different videos we can find on YouTube.
Yep.
What else? Oh, other stuff we can find on the computer. Yeah. And then when we do testing, they test pretty well. So this is our homeschool curriculum, and this is how we get it done for fairly inexpensively. It is a secular curriculum. It has no religious stuff in it, so if that was something that you wanted to add, you would have to add that separately, of course. And it does schooling for 36 weeks, and then in the very end, at least in these upper grades and the newer versions, they have answer keys. So when they have a worksheet that's a whole bunch of, math problems, etc., it makes it really easy for me as the teacher, or even them themselves. Sometimes I'll have them just grade their own worksheet to just go to the answer keys and then get everything all, graded up and figure it out, and so we can just move on pretty easily, figure out, what we need to do next. So anyway, that is sort of my review of the Learn at Home curriculum, why I chose it, and why I feel like it's a good curriculum to start out with and use for someone who has, no education as far as educating children. I don't have any kind of a teacher degree or anything like that, but it's made it pretty easy for us to figure out how to do this homeschool stuff pretty easily. So hopefully you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you next time. I'm Frugal Green Girl. Thanks for watching.